too many things going on. Okay.
What are we giving away today?
Good afternoon. Welcome to a Friday live stream with Becky and
Con?
And you're going to watch our ads for
Yeah,
us?
definitely. Gonna make us some money.
Hope you're all well. It looks like that this topic just kicked off an amazing bit of interaction on the chat.
Such a heated discussion in the comments.
Truly. I mean, there was the option of potentially calling it something else a bit more controversial, but I thought this was controversial enough, actually. It's a topic that I think inflames the passions
Definitely,
of our little nerdy souls. So we will be reading from the comments a lot today. It's going to be very much a chat-led live stream. We're really delighted to have you here. Thank you to everyone who has already watched our photography show vlog and our little macros video that we uploaded earlier on in the week. It's been a busy old week.
That's true.
We've done a lot of stuff and it's not over yet.
Yeah, we all need a coffee fund today because we're going to the coffee festival.
That's right. Yeah, we're going to the coffee festival to shoot some film, actually.
Yeah, because why not?
Because that's what we're doing.
Shoot some beans.
So if you would like to contribute to the coffee fund, you can do so using the super chat $, which is down there. If you are not logged into YouTube and you can't do it that way, or you're not watching live, then we've got the PayPal me link, which is in the description box below. I'm just generally gesturing towards it.
Yeah, cash is fine as well.
We take bribes. No, not really. And we will be announcing the competition winner from last week's tomato competition.
Yes.
There were 65 entrants.
65 tomatoes.
Yeah.
That's more than a kilo.
Which I will do at the end of the show, and then we'll work out what the
next word is.
Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't gotten that far. We're completely unprepared. So yes, we are talking about the beauty of DSLRs in a mirrorless age.
Remember they used to do those things, they called them DSLRs, so we just want to talk about them.
It's
I can go now.
You
probably.
can. That's it. Thanks.
Yeah, that's it.
Thanks for that input.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning to you from Lisbon and California and Gloucestershire. Everyone, hi, all over.
It's an early morning in Gloucestershire.
It is an early morning in Gloucestershire. And thank you, Adrian, for your contribution to the coffee fund. Very, very much appreciated. Most absolutely. And Andy's in Berkshire. Now, there's a few of you saying, I saw this top of this. For some reason, the chat starts with Baxter talking to John. It's almost like they already started the conversation before the chat started.
They've started the live stream before we joined.
Yeah. So it was great. I was reading it while we were preparing and I was thinking, this is interesting. So
really good discussion.
It is. So Baxter shoots mostly medium format and also uses his Nikon D810 and D800 and just didn't get on with the Z7 when he tried it. Whereas John was saying, actually, I use the Z7 too quite a lot. He also uses the Hasselblad. Got a lot of mirrorless, medium format shooters here, which is great. Maybe we should do a medium, just for you.
I'm not saying anything.
Just for you, we should do a medium format stream.
Yes.
And I'll bring my Holger.
Yes, well, you got Pentax, 6x7.
Yes, I do. It's true. I just thought I would annoy people. Thank you, Terry, for your contribution to the coffee fund as well. Very, very much appreciated.
You got Adrian as well. Thank you very much.
I did say thank you.
Okay.
You missed that.
I'm not listening.
You weren't paying attention. So I think, medium format is a discussion we can have at another time. It's an entirely different price bracket to what we're talking about.
But at the same time, when we talk medium format, currently, in digital form, you're pretty much talking mirrorless.
Now, you mean?
Exactly.
Like modern day.
In modern day medium format.
It's true. It's true.
A baby medium format or whatever they call it.
If you do indeed call it that. I think that there was that discussion when full frame sensors became so high resolution that they were almost, but not quite, an answer to medium format for some.
That's true, which opens another can of worms. Because while it's true, it is not at the same time, because you could definitely see, let's say, difference between 35mm negative and 6x7.
For sure.
Nowadays, you can't call, let's say, resolution of the full frame sensor as good as medium format because it's still the physical size stays the same, but resolution has jumped a little bit. So I don't know if you would do a comparison with that. I would maybe say the higher resolution because the pixels are so small, it's almost like a fine grain on film.
Maybe. I mean, that's a comparison you'd be welcome to try.
Absolutely. What do you think?
You'd definitely be welcome for all our medium format shooters.
Yeah, that's how you hijack the live stream about DSLRs versus mirrorless.
Make it about medium format.
Exactly.
So yeah, there's a few people talking about the focusing on the Zs. We'll talk about that. I mean, Matt made an interesting point of that it's, manufacturers are pushing the mirrorless side of things, and that's kind of why we've gotten into this discussion in the first place. And I do think that that's true, most definitely. But unfortunately, we are a little bit at the manufacturer's mercy. No matter whether you use Nikon or any other brand, we are at their mercy, because whatever they support and whatever they continue to make is, if you want to stay reasonably current with your equipment, or you think you might need to upgrade at some point in the not too distant future, it comes down to what's available, right?
Yeah, let's talk about, let's say, 5 years down the road. If they do stop making DSLRs in 5 years, not now, obviously now it's a different story, but in 5 years, they do stop making DSLRs, you won't really have a choice.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
If you want to buy a new camera.
Absolutely. And while, let's say, we can make analogy to film, at the same time, there are not many manufacturers who actually make brand new film cameras. I think it's only Leica, so they do this MP thingy.
Now that the F6 is discontinued.
That's the thing. But obviously DSLRs are not dead.
No,
definitely
not. And we definitely don't want to anyone to take that away from today's live stream. It's the opposite. We're giving the DSLR some love and maybe highlighting kind of what the current camera market scene is. Thank you to Jeremy also for your contribution to the Coffee Fund, and to Pedro. For some reason, you're getting the notifications there before I am here, so I'm reading them off.
I have a faster connection,
It's churning away.
But actually, I had a phone call from very well-known professional portrait photographer.
Yeah.
The one who photographed a lot of famous people. And he asked me, well, I adore my D850. I am contemplating with the idea of mirrorless cameras. Well, shall I upgrade now? And my answer was, well, if you want a direct one-to-one replacement to D850, then you probably want to wait for at least a year.
Sure.
And I think that's all that needs to be said about our opinion about DSLRs,
Yeah. It's like, hang on, don't change.
Exactly.
The D850 was and still is the best DSLR that Nikon ever made. So many people have said it, not just us, but I think multiple photographers who are D850 users.
Arguably, it's probably the best DSLR ever, like among all manufacturers, in my opinion.
I don't have any kind of yardstick by which to measure, because I don't use any other DSLR manufacturer. But yeah, I do think that if you're going to improve on a D850, if you're going to produce another D850, if Nikon were to do that, I mean, it would have to be something else entirely, because what are they going to do? Put more pixels in?
Well, that's the thing, and that's what we're talking about: mirrorless versus DSLR, and we are being at manufacturer's mercy.
Yeah.
If you look, let's say, at Nikon, since we are Nikon
centric,
exactly. So they are not going to update the autofocus system on DSLRs, because I think the all R&D goes towards mirrorless autofocus at the moment. So yes, you're going to put probably higher resolution sensor.
Yeah.
But everything else is pretty much, it's so good already that, yes, you're not going to get upgrade on autofocus system. Everything else will stay the same. The build quality is really good. The size, just overall kind of the buttons, the layout, etc., is so good on the camera. So yeah, you may have some sort of D880, but we're looking at what, maybe 60 megapixels plus?
I'd imagine so. Did Canon do a 100 megapixel 35mm DSLR?
I'm not sure. I don't think so.
Or was there just talk of it at one point?
Yeah, the only 100 megapixel cameras I know are medium format cameras, and they're basically the same sensor on Hasselblads and Fujis.
But they did a 60 megapixel one, did they?
They did, yes. The 5G Mark IV, perhaps, yeah. And obviously Sony did some, but Sony don't have DSLRs.
No.
Yeah.
They don't. That's true. So I remember, because that Canon camera with the 60 megapixels, which was the DSLR, came out a few years ago, before even Nikon were talking about mirrorless. It was when I think the D810 was... Yeah,
the reviews weren't very positive on that. They were kind of mixed bag.
Yeah.
And I think that's to do with the low light performance of the sensor, et cetera, et cetera. But when D850 came out, pretty much everyone said that's the best camera.
Yeah, exactly. And it is kind of the sweet spot, I would say. Just highlighting some comments here. Randall said Nikon lenses work great with the Z cameras, because a few people were talking about the compatibility of lenses. He said, my experimenting with this adapter. So he's using a Megadap adapter for Sony lenses onto his APS-C Nikon, so ZFC, Z50. My experimenting with the adapter that uses Sony E-mount lenses show that it works, and I don't have to purchase lenses for the DXZ camera. So that's very interesting. Yeah. I think one argument would also be that there aren't enough DX lenses out there yet. We've only got 2.
No, and that's where I think, it's important to get third-party lenses in, because, when we talk about Sigmas, and ideally, we want them to start to make lenses for Z-mount, they do have a really good lenses for DX. I think it's something like 24, 35, and something like 56 lenses for Sony cameras. So effectively, all you need to do is just basically adapt them to Z-mount. So, and obviously whatever comes with it, licensing issues, etc., etc. So that's where Nikon doesn't really pay much attention to, but there is definitely space there to fill.
Yes, yeah, exactly. David Dixon said, I must be one of the few people who started with mirrorless micro four thirds in 2011, and then Nikon DSLR when people started ditching them for Sonys and I could afford them used. So that's interesting. I remember when the Z6 and Z7 came out, I think it was Tom Hogan who said something like, this is the Z6 is Nikon's 12th mirrorless camera or something, because of course there was the Nikon One system as well, which wasn't micro four thirds, but it was their first kind of attempt. They were a little bit too, there were 2 problems with the Nikon One system.
Oh, there was a lot more problems with it in my opinion.
There were 2 problems. The first one was that it wasn't positioned properly. And I think it was a little bit ahead of its time in that nobody was quite ready for that technology yet. We were still thinking we want compact cameras or DSLRs. And the lack of promotion of it. The sensor was also too small. Okay.
That's true. I think this camera wasn't aimed at pros.
It wasn't at all.
And it was aimed as a replacement of a Coolpix sector that was shrinking because of the increase in mobile phone sales.
Right.
So I think that's the reason. So they positioned it towards entry-level people, so and in Asia it sold very well.
Yes.
But it wasn't aimed at professional photographers, and obviously professional photographers got, I wouldn't say they got angry, but they weren't pleased with the specs of the camera, especially the size of the sensor.
Yes. If you're a pro, then it's a bit of a I would say, it's a bit of a deal breaker.
Yeah,
that's not the word I was looking for. Anyway.
The only pro use that I heard mentioned all the time is 2.7 crop allows you for very high magnification. So to use via f2.1 adapter with the long lenses.
Yeah.
So 400 suddenly gives you something like 2.7 crop. So it's something like over 1,000 millimeters focal distance. That's the only professional use that I've heard of. Everything else in terms of, let's say, kind of not telephoto side of things, not really, because it was quite noisy already at ISO 800, at least V1.
Yeah, I mean, I had the V1 and I enjoyed using it as a holiday, happy, snappy camera. That 10 to 30 pretty much stayed on the camera all the time because it was like a 27 to whatever. And I enjoyed it for bright, sunny situations or wandering around museums, but it was rubbish in low light.
So it's basically Porta 400.
Yeah, like
Can't use it indoors. It's too dark.
Just brought my 35 Ti. Anyway, Dennis said, good morning from a sunny New York. Morning, Dennis. Keeping my D500 and D850 for a while. Might be tempted to move up if they come out with an FX version of the ZFC. Until then, I stay where I am. And I think that's a really good point. The ZFC is very good for a particular market that it was aimed for. I think that Nikon have actually been surprised at how many more photographers have taken on the ZFC.
Yeah, again, I think it was aimed at younger people, and then it was a pleasant surprise for Nikon themselves that a lot of, let's say, older users who had film cameras that looked like ZFC, they also felt a bit of nostalgia and they really liked the camera. So I think that's that's why they said, oh, we are quite surprised by the take-up on the ZFC.
Yes.
Well, you shouldn't be. It's a really nice camera.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't be surprised, Nikon. It's a lovely camera, and I was already a big advocate of the Z50 and what you can do with that camera. So the ZFC made sense. But I would love if they had an FX version. We've brought along today a
full-frame ZF.
A full-frame ZF. This is the ZFX in DSLR form. So there's one thing about this camera. It's really like, it's quite chunky when you pick up a ZFC and then you pick up this, you really feel it in the hand. But I do love this concept of retro cameras. Randall made a good point. Randall, thank you so much for your contribution to the Coffee Fund. Absolutely, goodness, amazing. And also thank you, Gary, for your contribution as well. Thank you. £4.49, that sounds like a grande latte from somewhere. He was like, it's a weird amount of money. It's fine. It pays for coffee. My oat milk flat white is now £3.40.
That's why you spend a couple of grand on a good coffee machine, and then you make 3 coffees in the morning, 1 to drink now and 2 thermoses to take away.
Yeah, I'm too lazy for that. Anyway.
It's paid for itself in 2 years.
Yeah. Randall said, what type of coffee is your favorite? Like beans. Now, you are the bean expert.
It's a difficult one.
Yeah.
I drink espresso-based drinks, and for me, long black, which is short version of Americano, is normally the way to go.
Yeah.
And I like South American beans.
I do too.
Because I like the sweetness. I don't like the dark roast. I'm more of a medium roast guy.
Yeah.
Don't like very light roast as well. So kind of light to medium is my way to go. But definitely single origin for filter, so V60 drip style of coffee, and then blends for espresso-based drinks.
Well, there you go. Yeah. That's your answer, Randall. I'm also a South American kind of... When I first... My husband's South American, and his family used to send us like little packages of Venezuelan coffee beans and stuff like that. It was fantastic. But that, I think, got the taste.
Definitely. Actually, current favorite is Kenya AA. Beautiful, fruity, single origin coffee.
Okay. And then back to the subject of cameras. Randall also asked, are we going to take pics or video? So we're going to be doing film photography, as in shooting with 35mm film at the coffee festival. And then we will be shooting video of us doing that.
Because you can't be more hipster than a film camera at the coffee festival.
That's right. We're going with extra hipster.
Exactly.
And we'll bring along my beanie just to be on the safe side. But that does kind of lead me to the point of video. So remember that for later. We need to talk about video.
Well, when we talk DSLRs, that's, I think, where they lack, because the video on DSLRs is not as good on mirrorless. So that's one area. But obviously, there are a lot of areas where DSLRs still excel and still are better than mirrorless cameras.
Yeah.
And I do get a lot of flack for me saying that D850 is my kind of commercial job camera to go to.
I don't think that you should get any flack for that at all.
But that's just me, and that's my opinion. And it's still the case. I would use D850 for any commercial job that would be thrown at me from just basically studio portrait work or still life or events as well. And that's something where, for me, D850 would be a kind of a trusty, proven horse compared to, let's say, to a mirrorless camera. However, we did shoot interiors with Z7 the other day. That performed really well. And for this type of job where autofocus is, let's say, fast autofocus.
Yeah.
We're not talking about precision, because precise autofocus, that's where actually mirrorless is better compared to DSLRs. But actually speed of autofocus, that's where DSLRs still excel, in my opinion.
That's fair enough. I do think it's down to what you're familiar with, and if you know how to get the best out of the AF system on the Z cameras.
Okay, well,
this is my personal opinion.
Well, here's an example. Yes,
okay,
I do this Christmas event every year for this nuclear company. They rent a hotel out. There's a bunch of rooms. It's all poorly lit, small rooms cramped with people. You have a flash. You should with flash. But autofocus there becomes so important that you don't have much time to spend, because you need to be really quick. You take a shot, you move on to the next couple, let's say, next set of people to shoot.
Yeah.
In this type of conditions, mirrorless would struggle to focus. It would hunt.
Right.
So I would spend more time just trying to focus on people before taking the shot. That's where DSLR would excel.
So low light autofocus rather than tracking moving subjects.
Yeah, and if you're thinking about events, they're indoors. They're generally quite poorly lit.
I can understand, because I was thinking, because a lot of people come up and say, "Oh, I'm shooting wildlife, and I don't think the Z's going to do the job." Actually, no, it will. And if you look at any of Rishi's videos, you can see that he's even put it on sort of AF auto, you know, that auto area mode where the camera basically picks the closest, highest contrast subject. And you'd be amazed at how many times the camera gets the subject right.
Yes.
And he did that almost as well.
You know, and this is my next point. So obviously low light autofocus for me is just because I know I'm doing this type of job. So that's why I bring this example. So, but another point of view would say you just trust the AF system. For me, a person who is shooting with a single focusing point, locks in the middle and focus and recompose, to give this level of trust to the camera, it's quite difficult on a psychological level.
I can understand for a paid job that I totally understand. You have trust issues.
No, but even for general hobby photography, it's just it requires a lot of blind trust into the expectancy of the camera doing the right thing, and I don't think that I'm mentally prepared for that.
Okay.
So the machine to be better than me.
Yes. Yes, and I think that as Dixon was pointing out, like all of the cameras, in terms of their capabilities, they actually far exceed, he says, his abilities. But I think a lot of people's abilities to use those facilities that they have. And so he uses no more than about 20% of their features. The number of sort of pro and semi-pro photographers that I speak to who say, I don't know anything about the menus and stuff. I just, I set my camera up how I like it and I go and shoot. That's it.
And that's the thing. You got lots of those videos on YouTube where the YouTubers / photographers taking portraiture and they're using the eye recognition of the camera, the mirrorless camera.
Yeah.
And I look at it and I'm like, maybe I should change the way my brain is wired, but I would never do that.
Yeah.
I would just either move my focusing point to the eye level and use it this way, or I would use sense focusing point and I would just recompose all the time. I know maybe it's not practical, but it's just the way I've learned how to use cameras.
Yes.
And having this trust for eye autofocus, for me, I'm sure I'll get there, but it's just those kind of trust issues that I have. Like, I'm not ready to give this freedom to the camera,
So we've established on today's live stream that
we all have issues on a personal level.
Issues. Poor David says, got COVID, needs cheering up. Well, hopefully we're cheering you up today and that you're not feeling too rough. I'm so sorry to hear that. Steve said, should be an interesting one today. Steve went for a Z6 II last year, sold his beloved D750. I think around the time that we were doing our live streams from home, and Steve helped me do the astrophotography live stream, which was fantastic and much fun. And he was still using his D750 at that point, and I was using my Z6 for astrophotography. And said, still finding my way around the Z6 II, but I'm really enjoying it. I think that there's nothing really beats that new camera feeling. Do you know what I mean? Like when you move from one thing to another. But
a new item smell.
Yeah. It's like people getting a new gizmo, new computer, new phone. There is a certain enjoyment about it, but doesn't mean that it's necessarily groundbreakingly different. To what
we all get excited when Nikon the magazine comes in and we open the first box and it's just this, the smell of,
the
of the ink.
Of the magazines, freshly printed.
Those are toxins, but
they are. It's really bad for you. It's like Tipex and Sharpies. Right. Andy says, good afternoon from Berkshire. Still using my D7500. Enjoy using it, but I think the next camera I would buy would be mirrorless, potentially FX. And I think, Andy, as you quite, correctly pointed out, if you are planning to upgrade at this point, it would make sense to look at mirrorless, just because that's where things are going. Also, the size of the bodies being much smaller and lighter definitely
That's true. That helps, especially, again, if you do commercial work, you normally bring a lot of equipment with you. So to save a bit of kind of weight, it always helps. But the interesting analogy I'm going to bring with electric cars. Because, if I would be buying a car today, I would probably still go for normal, combustion engine vehicle. Yeah. So just because the electric cars are expensive. Yeah. So
that's the only reason why.
But, big Tesla supporter personally. But 3 years down the road, with all the things when they say we want to raise the taxes for those cars by 2025 and by 2030, et cetera, et cetera. So in 3 years down the road, would make sense for me to buy just an internal combustion engine vehicle? Probably not. So I would be looking in 3 years, let's say, to electric vehicle. Yeah,
and I do think that the environmental impact of every purchase you make is something that is worth considering.
That's
I don't know how that would compare in cameras.
But the reason why I'm bringing this analogy is because obviously, so maybe in 3 years down the road, the electric vehicles also will be on par with, let's say, in terms of range with, obviously, skip Tesla, look at the non-Tesla cameras. The range of those batteries, cars, the range of those cars, how long they can drive on one charge is quite small. So kind of Tesla is leading that. So my comparison is in 3 years down the road, technology advancements in mirrorless cameras will be probably quite good because obviously DSLRs reached that saturation point where, as we say, what they're going to do with the D850 replacements? Not much. With mirrorless cameras, there's still autofocus to improve. We need let's say, a bigger body, let's say for professional use like Z8 or Z9, 4K, 8K, etc., etc. So 3 years down the road, mirrorless is probably going to be a much easier choice than it is now because now we have kind of, the best of both worlds. If we have a choice of going with DSLR, that's still good and they're still being made, and mirrorless, that's still kind of the new thing, and it's going to be the future, but maybe they're not there yet.
Right. There we go. So that's your take. That's the mirrorless is anyway. Okay, good. The future.
No, but if you think about it from a professional point of view, like I need Z9.
Yeah.
Like if I do a commercial job, I need a camera level of Z9. Again, we don't know how it's going to be. So this is just based on rumors that those Autofocus is going to be really good.
Yes.
But for me, as a replacement of D850, it has to be on par with D850.
There you go. Okay. Well, to point out, Liam said D850 is a great camera, but for me, in my use case, the Z7 II is just as good. So I think it depends on what you're doing.
But that's the thing.
So.
I'm talking professional job on one that can do any job thrown at it. For general use, well, we use Z6, and I can shoot interiors with Z6. I can shoot anything with Z6.
Yeah.
Unless, let's say, the event in low light conditions.
I mean, I love my Z6, but I have not yet had to, thanks to COVID, had to shoot a wedding or a concert with it.
That's true.
And I don't know what it's going to be like when I get to that point because I don't have a DSLR anymore. I will just go back to shooting Kodak Portra.
Fair enough. And then we shot interiors with Z7 as well. And it's basically the same D850 sensor. For this type of job, I don't need D850. Yeah. Z7 is absolutely fine with it. And the image quality is fantastic. So really, they're kind of horses for horses. And as I say, yes, if you want the ultimate camera, that's where it's at. But if you don't do this type of job, mirrorless cameras are absolutely fine.
There you go. I have to apologize that I've been skipping some of the chat because it just refreshed and suddenly I've got a whole load more comments. So I don't know what's going on. My computer's working so hard on trying to send the stream to your homes that my chat's a bit lagging behind. So Norm said the manufacturers are trying to get their customer base to invest in new bodies and lenses. You gain a weight advantage and small size with the mirrorless systems, but the DSLR systems still excel. They are fantastic. There's no doubt about it. Anthony said, I can only assume the slow move away from DSLR is because they are by design more complex to manufacture and repair. I don't know. There's certainly more mechanical parts because you've got that whole mirror.
Yeah, you eliminate the mirror and the prism, so that should hopefully help. But
and I think that will eventually mean that we will no longer have tested up to a certain number of shutter actuations. Because you look at like mechanical shutter.
Oh, you mean if you eliminate mechanical shutter? Okay.
Because it's not just the physical shutter, it's the mirror mechanism moving as well.
That's true.
And you wouldn't have that with mirrorless cameras. Now, Sean thinks that the Z system is not good enough for wildlife, and that the D850 and D500 are the best options. So that's...
Well, here we go. But my experience with the puppy, Z6 II was capable enough.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. I think wildlife. It's only, it's not the wildlife. That's true. That's, but like what I've noticed is if you shoot, let's say from left to right, it will cope really well. But if you got subject coming towards you, straight on you, that's where it struggled.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I didn't do any.
And again, if you do, let's say, some fashion shows, some catwalks, that's where potentially the camera will struggle compared to DSLR.
Cedric said the problem is actually the lens choice. There's no 105 1.4 available in mirrorless and would probably be more expensive. So he'd be more likely to keep his DSLR and use the FTZ.
But that's the thing. I don't really have the problem with that. For me personally, it's not an issue because you can put those lenses via FTZ adapter and they perform really well on mirrorless cameras.
Right. Yeah. Now, Gordon said everyone seems to say Z mount lenses are the best. In terms of optics, you can't beat the Z lenses in comparison to F mount. There is, and I remember we had this discussion when we would when the Z system had quietened down a bit, probably about a year ago now. It's like how long
that
have
was
we
a
been
passionate live stream. I remember that.
Yeah, but the lenses were the driving force behind the Z system, I think.
I think it's universally agreed upon among all users, even Canon users and Sony users, that the Z lenses are really good.
Yeah, so they've put some magic dust in there somewhere. Baxter and also Lim 2001 Burger both said Canon did a 50 megapixel. Apparently, Baxter said they had a 125 megapixel sensor in development, but never got to market. So there you go.
That's how much we know about Canons and other brands,
terrible,
isn't
really.
it?
I really ought to do my research. Now, here's the interesting thing. So then the conversation, because I'm catching up here, conversation moved to the sensor cleaning issue. Now, did you see those comments about like having to clean the sensor and stuff like that? Because obviously
I've missed all that, but
because
what was the gist of it?
So Ghani said, I wander the woods in all weather. Many lens changes take place. Always have to be cleaning my sensor. Thinking mirrorless wouldn't be a good idea. Going to buy a D750. Well, that's fair enough, Ghani.
Yeah, it is rumored that Z9 will have some sort of cover for the sensor, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's what I heard.
Yeah.
And I wondered if because that would be fantastic if we could just get, when you're changing your lens, the shutter or some kind of cover comes down to protect the sensor, because dust is a massive issue. Later on, and I cannot find it. I mean, Uwe said mirrorless equals more dust on the sensor, but he also said he was going to buy a Google Pixel 6 as his next camera, so never mind. Pixel 6 Pro, sorry.
That's a phone, yeah? Okay.
It's a phone, yeah, so fine.
Well, it's a good substitute to full-frame DSLR, I agree.
Absolutely. But then someone else was saying, and I cannot find this comment, that yes, you get more dust on your sensor with a Z camera if you're not too careful, but with prisms and mirrors, you can get all kinds of things stuck and trapped up there.
Yeah, I do find once the dust gets into the chamber of DSLR, it eventually will end up on the sensor.
It's very annoying. So the dust is a photographer's worst enemy. It has been since the beginnings of photography in 1841, I can promise.
But you wouldn't feel it. Yeah, you wouldn't see it on the raw film because you wind it all the time.
Okay, so but still, if you think about dust in the development process.
That's true. Or if you put in the sheet film, then true.
Yeah,
true.
no, dust is a photographer's enemy, I would say. It truly is. I stand by that statement. So Nick Can says, battery life for mirrorless is still a bugbear for me. Hopefully the new Z9 battery life will equal or surpass the D5 or D6. I think it's just how energy hungry that EVF and back screen are.
But have you noticed that it's improved from generation to generation already?
For sure. I mean, I don't have a problem with the Z6 battery life, but I'm not except when I'm using old ENL 15s. If I use the current generation of battery, so an A or a B or even a C.
The C, is really good.
Yeah, they're very good.
I wonder if they're just original battery because obviously they're like 5-6 years old now. So maybe they tend to start to lose their charge as well.
Probably. It's like, and 5 or 6 year old phone doesn't hold its battery. Colin says, like. We have 228 concurrent viewers, actually more, and only 60 likes. So please do give us a thumbs up. Takes all of about a millisecond to do. We'd very much appreciate it.
There's an interesting debate going about, about optical viewfinder and electronic viewfinder. And some people say optical viewfinder is a must. Some people say electronic viewfinder is better. And obviously we've seen the electronic viewfinder technology has improved quite a bit. And obviously the next camera, Z9 is rumored to be lug-free, blackout-free, etc., etc. What's your personal choice, optical or electronic?
I like the what you see is what you get nature of the electronic viewfinder. Took a bit of getting used to though, and I know we did have a few customers who, when they first tried the Z cameras, they were like, "Oh, it's horrible. It's like looking at a TV screen." But having used Fuji and also the Nikon One system, their electronic viewfinders. The Nikon One system EVF was not very nice. The Fuji one was also not particularly enjoyable to use. So by comparison, I found the Z cameras much more pleasing on the eye. And once I'd gotten used to it, I actually prefer it now to an optical viewfinder.
Did you ever notice blackout thing?
No, I mean, I don't shoot at like 10 frames per second or anything. So no, I don't really have that as an issue. But I'm sure it would be annoying for very fast moving. Even when I'm shooting, because the fastest moving subjects that I will take pictures of are really tiny little birds or butterflies or anything nature photography wise. And even then, I won't usually use the maximum frames per second. I don't find it necessary. Maybe that's just me.
Well, again, everyone uses it for different purposes, isn't it? That's the thing. We only can talk from our own experience, isn't it? So,
yes.
For me personally, I don't have a beef with either of them, so I can use both equally well. I didn't like electronic viewfinders originally. I had X Pro 1, and that had very low resolution and laggy screen. So compared to that, they did improve them quite a bit already. I do like that you can set the exposure through the electronic viewfinder, which is really a nice option to have.
I do find that useful.
But also big optical viewfinder is just joy to use, I think.
Yeah, I think the bigger size is nice. I'd love if the Z9 had a really big viewfinder just to kind of, appease those. I don't shoot often with my glasses on, but when I do find it really annoying that the viewfinder is a bit small.
Do you have a rubber eye cup, like the bigger rubber thing?
No, because it's a rectangular eyepiece. So
you're talking about mirrorless. Sorry, I'm thinking D850.
Yeah, no, on the D850, I did have a rubber eye cup, and I just kept catching it on things. So I gave up with that.
Fair enough.
Generally don't shoot with glasses on. I just change the diopter. Apparently, so both Colin and John said they think you're right. I'm not sure what you're right about, but apparently you're right.
I'm glad that I'm right. I don't know what.
I'd like to thank David Dixon for the 1/4 kilogram of coffee beans and a roll of Portra 400.
Oh, thank you so much.
My kind of coffee fund contribution. Really appreciate that.
Good smells and good tones.
Absolutely. And thank you to Michael also for your contribution to the coffee fund. Massively appreciated. So thank you. Now, I pinned a comment. Here we go. So Tom says, I use the Z6 II for equestrian sports. That can be very low light. And that can be very tricky to focus
Equestrian is horses, right?
Yes.
Okay.
How
is it low light? Because it's what?
Well, usually if you're in, for example...
Is it indoors? Do they do equestrian indoors?
Of course,
yeah okay.
Absolutely.
I only have experience by watching Olympics, and that one experience, riding a horse that I had.
Singular experience which went so well. Do check out our podcast if you didn't see the Nikon Report, the Olympics edition. That was very funny.
Again.
But he said the only annoying thing is the lack of 100 to 400 Z. I was looking, so over the weekend or whenever it was, I can't remember why, I was looking at, I was clearing out some old files and I found the roadmap from October 2020 of lenses. And the number of lenses that they are yet to announce that are silhouetted on that roadmap is exactly 7. And how many lenses did they say they were going to bring out between now and next year?
8?
No, they said because... It was 8, but they've announced one since.
Okay, so 7, yeah. So it was from 22 to 30, right?
Yeah.
So it was 8, and then they 40 released, so 7.
So basically, there are 7 more, and they're all the ones that are.
And that's it. And once they release them, that's it. No more.
Well, the 85 is one of them.
Yes, so rumored to be 1 too, right?
Yeah. The 24-105 full frame.
Yes.
The 18-140 DX.
Yes. 100 to 400.
100 to 400, the 200 to 600, which looks really small on the roadmap. It's the same size as the 70 to 200.
Okay.
And then the 400mm and the 600mm.
Okay, I guess 28-18. That one is still missing in action, no?
It's not on the roadmap.
It's not there? I assume it should be out at some point, no?
Yeah, I hope so too. Anyway, just Tom, your point actually sparked some thoughts in my head, which is why I had to get that out. Yeah. But I hope that we are going to see more telephotos. I know we will, because they're obviously going to completely invest in that system.
But, speaking of focusing speed, brings me to actually focus precision.
Yeah.
And that's where mirrorless, I do find that I get more shots in focus with mirrorless cameras than with the DSLRs.
Which is interesting. Uwe brings out an interesting point. He said the Z6 II's got 2 CPUs, but it's not faster. It's not a marketing thing. It is more accurate, and that's taking the AF system and the dual AF processor from the D5, D500 concept. Those cameras are, in terms of nailing focus, you cannot go wrong with either one of them. So when people were saying, I'm not getting as many hits with my Z6 or Z7, Nikon's solution to that was a dual AF processor, which will then make it more accurate. So hence the reason for that. But, I mean, in terms of speed, there's nothing wrong with the speed of focusing on the cameras
That's
already.
True. And then once you kind of have animal recognition or eye recognition, the amount of data that both processors have to process increases dramatically. So that's why it's worth having a second processor.
Exactly. Nick says, I've been surprised at how good the Z6 II tracking AF is, and an improvement on the D750 and Z6, of which he had both and used them professionally for a lot of events. Low light focus is impressive too. So it's not all lost. You should maybe try Z6 II. Maybe that's the solution to the problem.
I don't shoot wildlife. That's the thing.
But these are just Nick. He shoots commercial
work is fine
and stuff. Yeah.
That's the thing. But I've got Z6 experience.
Yes.
So that, and I will try. But the problem with that is, I say, I want to make sure that I can trust as much as D850. So for me, D850 is the kind of this trusted tool that does anything you throw at it. That's the thing. And Z6 is a nice camera. It does a really good job. But for some things, I feel like maybe I'm not trusting it that much, which I probably should, really.
Yes, I think so. I mean, there's so many. Well, we've kind of turned this into a Z talk, but
no, but I think change is difficult for a lot of people. Like, I'm looking at myself as well. We don't like change in general, and once we kind of we all been using DSLRs for how long?
A long time.
That's the thing. I started with F100.
I started with in terms of digital photography with the D100, which I learned on, and then my mum got me the D200.
I started with D200.
And the D200 was, the D100 was really just to learn where things were, and how they, what white balance does and stuff like that, because I was moving from film. But the D200 was an amazing camera, and it still has that Nikon ergonomics. It's like if you put a D200 next to a D800, apart from the size of the screen on the back, this is a D800E. Someone was asking what this camera was. So next to our DF, we've got a D800E here. This is a classic.
Yeah, that was my first proper DSLR. Well, I had D700 before, but this is, I went for the E version because of no anti-aliasing filter. And I had a photographic studio at the time, so for me, I needed the high-resolution camera. So for me, it was a kind of conscious choice. I spent extra £500 to acquire the E version, and it's a fantastic camera. Yeah,
I definitely didn't want this camera when it came out. I thought the idea of 36 megapixels absolutely terrified me. I was very much in love with my D750 when it came out. Before that, I had the D700, so I waited a bit. But they are beautiful pieces of machinery. I suppose the concern now, if you were to buy a second-hand camera of any sort of DSLR variety, is how long will parts still be available for? That might be a consideration if you're planning to make it last for 10, 20, 30 years.
Well, that's the thing. So they're not dead. No. They're still being made and they're still being serviced. But let's say if you have this conversation 5 years down the road, it could be different. But it's the same as buying a film camera.
Yes.
Especially with lots of electronics. So let's say if you buy something like Nikon FM, which is fully mechanical, let's say, there's a good chance it can be fixed.
Yes.
But if you buy something like F4 and the little screen inside dies, then it's highly unlikely that you'll get it fixed.
Unless you cannibalize it from something else, basically.
Yeah.
That's the unfortunate thing about those older bodies. Like, for example, the D700 and the D3, you can't get parts for those anymore. Not officially, anyway. D3S, can you still get parts for that one? No,
all the D3 series are no longer supported. X as well.
And the D4s, D4Ss, you can.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And obviously D750s, you still can, and D600s and stuff. It's an interesting, it's a bit of a generation gap between the D3 series and the D4 series.
Nikon says I went from film to Nikon D90. D90 can still be serviced. We have one with Nikon at the moment, and they're waiting for parts. It's been there for a month, but it's still serviceable, which is surprising.
That is amazing. I'm very glad to hear it. Kotick Timmy also asks, do you think the existence of the 105 1.4 means there won't be a 105 f2 DC in the Z mount? DC was a very interesting lens because it was made for film photography. It was made in the 90s. It's a very kind of
product of its time.
Yeah, it really is. And although it's a beautiful lens, the defocus control factor has basically been eliminated in terms of need of photographers by post-processing software. You don't need to use defocus control anymore. It's nice to have, but I don't think that it would be necessary. I think that Nikon will probably bring out a Pro 105 Z lens in the future.
Yeah.
But whether it's a 1.4 or an f2 is... Yeah. Or even a 1.8.
Yeah, I personally desperate for 135. Because we haven't had one in a while. Yeah. Well, 105, 1.4 has been released about 4 years ago or so. The 135 f2 is still it's been discontinued, but that's the only 135 they have. There's nothing later.
Yeah,
I'm talking about modern lenses.
Yeah,
of course.
Exactly. So the 135 f2 DC is another curious one, and it would be nice to have a 135mm. Yeah. I've got the old 135 f2.8 AIS. This is a beautiful lens. It's really nice. I'm not really much of a lover of the 135 focal length, but I really enjoy that one. So anyway, you can always get one of those. Use focus peaking on the Zs. So Christos says, I use both D850 and Z7 II. Prefer shooting with the D850, especially when it's for a paid job. There you go.
That's exactly my sentiment.
That's your feeling.
Yeah, I'm not trying to upset anyone when I say those things.
No.
It's a personal choice, and that's all it is. It's,
Yeah.
you know, I'm sure that you can do equally good job with any Z camera. It's just my personal choice.
Yeah, exactly. Roy says the DC lenses are incredibly sharp. This is true, but the problem that we always had was sort of a front or back focusing issue straight out of the box. When the camera started to become that resolution, you could see every fault and flaw in a lens. So unfortunately, it was quite difficult
to pin the focus wide open, and also lots of fringing. If you got a subject backlit, so you're photographing a person in the park with the sun behind it, at f2 you have such a huge fringing and chromatic aberrations that even Lightroom can't desaturate it enough. So you really have to stop it down to a 456 to eliminate that. And that's where I did find that DC lenses had to go from my setup. So I've upgraded from pretty much all my D lenses to G-type lenses.
Yeah, exactly. We had that discussion. You can probably find it on one of our previous live streams where we were talking about, I can't remember what it was, Ds to Gs or something.
Yeah, that's true. But everyone's different, and I know that some people are still shooting with, with the DC lenses, and it still has a, kind of really good reputation.
It has a nice look. Those pictures have a really nice.
That's true.
Look and feel.
Again, when we're starting to talk about new lenses having a clinical look, those lenses have a little bit more atmospheric look, isn't it?
Exactly.
So,
There's an aesthetic to them. Hugh says, I hope that one day they will. Oh, I lost the comment because it refreshed while I was reading. I hope one day they'll make a retro FX in the shape of a Nikon F3 HP with a matching motor drive. How cool would that be? Yeah, but it has to be black because the F3s only ever came out in black. They did do a black one.
Yeah.
True. It's not quite the shape of an F3 HP, but anyway, watching you guys are a breath of fresh air. Well, thank you, Hugh, especially in current times. Yes, well, I'm glad you think so. Very much that we're here for your entertainment. And thank you to Vince for your contribution to the coffee fund. That is fantastic. There's going to be a lot of coffee later, isn't there?
That's true.
It's going to be a great vlog. We're going to be wired.
Yeah, I'm going to buy a couple of kilos of beans tonight.
Now, so Dixon says, why is the D780 still so expensive? I don't know what the price is over in the US. In the UK at the moment, the D780 is on offer until the 5th of October. And it's about, I think, £180 off the body and possibly £270 off the kit, which makes it a bit more reasonable. I think that price will start to go down so that it's mid the 1,500 price range. I can't answer you why Nikon priced it at that much, and I do think that when it first came out, because I love the D780. I mean, if it had come out before the D850, like a few years ago,
they would give it some marketing budget,
or even at the same time as the D850, if they had put like, this is the prosumer body and then the D850 is the professional body, I probably would have gone for a D780 as my upgrade from the D750. But because there was nothing, I went for a D850. And I did find the files more than I needed. It was way too big, which was why when I went mirrorless, I went for the Z6, not the Z7. I was like, I do not need 45 megapixels.
You do need 45.
You need 45 megapixels.
You do, yeah.
I don't need 45 megapixels.
But actually, one thing they would upgrade from D850 to D880 is actually use that hybrid system that they use from live view system that they use on D780.
Yeah.
They would put it in D880 with a higher resolution sensor. I think it would justify an upgrade for a lot of people.
You think so?
Possibly, yeah.
Then it comes down to like the cost.
As an ultimate F6 of digital cameras, you know, so yeah.
The cost of production would then be the next factor, but that's not our problem. That's a them problem. Glenn said, please give a shout out to the D780. I moved from a 750 to the 780 and I love it. I quite agree, Glenn. It is a fab camera, really. I think that it needs a bit more love. I'm glad that Nikon have put it on offer in the UK. They probably have done in other regions as well. But we have them in stock. So if you are after a D780, you can get a discount. And also, it's a slightly more solid camera than the D750. It's better weather sealed, let's say.
That's true.
Although a lot of people are going for smaller, lighter cameras now, and hence the mirrorless argument, if you want something that really just feels solid in the hand, then D780 is the way to go. Now, Dervish says it's about justifying the change. What are you getting for your money? Switching from a D500 or any DSLR would be, would the expenditure of the Z camera and Z lenses give you value for money?
Yeah.
And I think it's a really good exercise in evaluating what equipment you have, what you can use with the Z system, maybe doing a halfway transition. I had the D850 and the Z6 for a while.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to get rid of the D850 until I realized I hadn't used it for 6 months.
Yeah.
Then thought I can't afford to have a camera that I'm not using.
Yeah, it's everyone's personal decision because it's a big outlay if you want to get into the system. It's basically like switching the systems effectively.
Yeah.
The good thing about obviously switching to the same Nikon system but mirrorless is you can get an FTZ adapter. So that way you can spread the investment in a way. You can get the body, start to use your current f-mount lenses and slowly upgrade to to Z lenses. That's what I'm doing right now. I still need to get my 24-70 2.8, 70-114-24.
Get all the lenses.
Absolutely. In the meantime, I've got my 2.8 Holy Trinity in f-mount, which I will be using on Z camera, hopefully. Soon.
Yes, exactly. Alistair would like to hear more of your Brummie accent. Birmingham. We don't want to offend any Brummies out there, but just
shall we do Peaky Blinders?
Peaky Blinders accent. That's all you can do. There's too much swearing, unfortunately, so not safe for the live stream. He's not even Brummie. He was from London. He was the London gangster.
That's true.
Anyway, Lim 2001 Burger says, I am keenly watching the D500 prices. This is another camera that I think needs a promo. It needs something to inject some life into it because, my goodness, the DSLRs are so fantastic. It would be lovely to just have a bit of marketing budget spent on them, I think. And you know who I'm talking to. So now there was another comment that I definitely wanted to read. Oh, Photo Enthusiastic said, I tried the D780, but went back to Z with the Z7 II. Found I missed the mirrorless EVF amazingly. So there you go.
You get used to those things really quickly.
You do. You do for sure. And then, I mean, some people will argue if you've got DSLRs, you've got the lenses, do you spend money on the body? A new Z body, or do you just spend some more money on some f-mount glass, which will last you for years and years? There's I think.
But as a photographer with a hobby, which you want to stay current, a lot of people start to think, well, maybe there is a time to slowly to switch into the mirrorless system, which is supposed to be future according to manufacturers and marketing.
That's right, according to manufacturers and marketing.
Yeah, so in terms of this, a lot of people asking themselves this question because, again, it's a big outlay if you just want to switch from one to another.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are trying to spread the cost over years.
Yeah,
several years.
Absolutely. 100 odd of you, please do give us a thumbs up. We would love to have a like because we're going to wrap up the stream in about the next 10 minutes. It would be great to just have a few more people come along. And Liam said, still use loads of f-mount glass. Z glass is amazing value, but the FTZ works extremely well.
Yeah.
He also said FTZ for the win a little bit earlier. And I quite agree. I am really enjoying using manual focus glass on the FTZ because you don't get through the lens focus peaking with DSLRs. You do.
You got a little rangefinder bit, which is a little bit iffy, and it's never been precise to me personally.
No.
I do find, if you have a lot of manual focus glass, it's much easier to focus with the Z system compared to optical viewfinder with DSLR. I agree. Yeah.
And if you don't want to use the focus peaking through the viewfinder, you can actually magnify the image and fine tune your focus. You can do all kinds of things. It's very, very easy to use. There were a few people asking about like release dates and things for various lenses to go along with, like, when's the STZ2 coming out? It hasn't even officially been released. We don't know. We'll probably discuss it at length in next week's
we have a
report.
news podcast that you can tune into every week.
We speculate on this frequently.
That's true.
It's funny because Roy said, I lent out my D5. I don't miss it, but never my D850 cameras. It's funny, isn't it? You know whether or not you're going to miss an item if you loan it out to someone.
I don't want to loan out my personal equipment to anyone,
that's fair
not
enough.
even to my wife.
No.
not like she knows how to use it.
I don't let my husband use my cameras either.
No.
I bought him a little D5300 for Christmas a few years back, and I'm like, what's wrong with that?
Yeah,
Just
I'm like
use
that
your
goblin
camera.
from Lord of the Rings, the precious,
It's mine.
Yeah.
Leo, we do sell to Ireland. Yes, we sell all over the world. If you order from our online shop, you can order anywhere in Europe. And if you are outside of Europe, then you can just call us and order from us. That's the easiest way to do it. Nikon gave us even the choice with the FTZ to use the old F-mount glass from the 70s. That's from Klaus Hermann Otto. It's true, or it might be Otto Klaus Hermann, because of the German where they mix it around. But anyway, it's very true. You can use pre-AI lenses on the FTZ, which I really love. I really
That's true.
like the fact that it's given them this whole lease of life.
Yeah, it's interesting because when DSLRs came out with video, we did notice that the manual focus lenses have a bit of revival because a lot of cinematographers bought those lenses, not actually, photographers.
Yeah.
Now with the Z system, we start to sell now probably half and half to cinematographers and photographers because a lot of people coming back to manual focus lenses to put on their mirrorless cameras. So that's something we didn't have with DSLRs.
No, it's true. They didn't have much of a revival, except for when the DF came out. There was a little splurge, and then that was it. Atang asks, says, I'm using a D5500, hope to get a full frame body for landscapes. However, gear prices in South Africa are ridiculous. Well, maybe, yes, I have heard that on some instances that in certain regions it's much more expensive.
Yeah.
We do also sell to South Africa if that helps at all, Atang. Now, this is actually a talk that could go on forever and ever and ever, and is a very hot topic. I think we did one like last year where we were sort of asking about the Z system. We've done one this year. Maybe next year we'll do another one and see. We'll
just reassess the situation. But I think it's safe to say that DSLRs are not dead.
No.
And they still have their own place. And it's up to you what you want to use. And obviously next year it could be different, could be not. Let's see what future gives us.
Yeah, I think it would be an interesting move on Nikon's part if they were to release a D880. For the simple reason that no other manufacturer is now producing DSLRs, if I'm not mistaken. Canon said they're not producing DSLRs anymore. Sony stopped. Pentax stopped producing. They had an SLR system a while
the
back.
one that looked like Transformer.
Yeah. Which I think they stopped. I don't know anyone else that produces DSLRs. I'm just trying to think. Do they still produce DSLRs?
I have no idea.
Anyway, so I think it would be quite a nice sort of nod to Nikon's many avid lovers and followers to produce, even if they said, this is the last DSLR we're going to make. Yeah. If they brought it out with that ad campaign, I think that would be, first of all, it would upset a lot of people, but everything does, so whatever. But I think that it would also just kind of give a little bit of a reassurance.
That's true. But at the same time, I think they do some sort of, paid researches where, like, if they release the 880, if people would buy it, and what's the proportion of people would buy this and over, let's say, Z9 or something like this. So I guess, those studies are being made and they look at those. I think from the point of just good PR, it's worth releasing the 880.
Yeah.
But I also think that when we say we're going to reassess the situation next year, I think a lot will depend on Z9 release and how good it is in reality, not just based on hype that we have now and pure speculation, because apparently Autofocus of Z9, it's the best thing since sliced bread. But we don't know because we haven't seen the camera yet. So once the camera actually comes out, everything is, we start to see the reviews and professional using it. I think that will tell a lot of photographers like us, hobbyists and professionals, if they actually will decide to start to look into mirror system, or they will stay for another year with a DSLR.
Yeah, exactly. Phil said that D6 came out this year. That's new. No, it actually came out last year.
2 years ago?
Yeah, it's almost 2 years.
2 years ago,
It was January 2020.
2019.
Was it 2019?
Or was it 2020?
No, it was 2020 because we were going to have an Olympics in 2020 and we didn't. So they brought it out in January.
Gosh, it's the end of 2021 already.
Yeah, we're nearly at the end of 2021. So it was almost 2 years ago, but it feels relatively new because last year doesn't count. Time had no meaning last year.
How long do we, how long have we been doing this?
I don't know.
The YouTube channel.
March 2020. So yeah, a year and a half.
But we started the videos before though.
We were doing videos before, but the live stream started in March. So yeah, it's crazy. Right, I have a competition winner to announce. So let me do that while I'm here. This is your hold music. So, that was very quick.
Oh.
It's so podcast. So George Moulinos said, a tomato goes good with a bacon and lettuce sandwich or a Greek salad with feta. That's very true. Thank you for using the word tomato, George. We massively appreciate. You have won, as I said last week, I think, a wonderful copy of David Yarrow's Focus, which is a wonderful production. Just look at that.
Fancy.
It's great. Anyway, it's a lovely thing to have.
It was shot with DSLR.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, David uses D850s specifically. I think that's the only camera he uses.
I'm pretty sure that's the only camera he uses. He did have a mirrorless for a while. He had a Z7.
Yeah. But he normally buys D850s in bulk. So because
they get trashed.
half of them are being literally trashed or eaten by lions. Yeah.
Exactly. So very, very well done, George. So what's our keyword for this week?
Ooh, what kind of fruit are we going to name this time?
Is it going to be a fruit?
Let's do a fruit.
Okay. Should we make it a lemon then?
Let's do a lemon.
Gary said the lemon is in play.
Yeah.
If you haven't listened to Cabin Pressure, you won't understand that. But if you have, then the lemon is in play. So just use this is in the comments, not in the live chat. So below the video, once we've finished, you should be able to post a comment and just use a sentence. Just put the word lemon in there. Throw it in somewhere. I'm going to get loads of comments about.
Yes. Oranges and lemon.
Yeah. And then we will bring out a prize of some form because I realized that I didn't prepare that. I have something very nice, which we will announce the winner of next. It's going to be a lemon. No, it's not. Really.
Lemon of a prize.
I got some good things. There will be a good prize for next week. Right. That is all we have time for.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I think we could easily spend another hour just deciding which one is better. But I think they all have their own place. And it's up to you.
Yeah.
Decide what suits you the most.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, everyone, for your contributions to the Coffee Fund, for your wonderful comments. It's been a really engaging chat this afternoon. We will see you next week for another podcast and live stream.
Absolutely.
And until then, have a great weekend. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.